Hi, welcome back to the Backpacker Coach. Today I wanted to talk to you about buying a tent. It's summertime, it's when people start to think, no, I really need to buy a new tent. And that's when we need to start thinking about what kind of tent to buy. Whether you're going backpacking, whether you're car camping, it's very important to get the right kind of tent. Otherwise, you're going to get wet. So, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is there's a couple rules that if you follow, you will not get wet when it rains. So the first rule is you need to make sure when you're buying a tent that there are no saggy spots and everything is very taut. If there are any saggy spots where it's starting to sag, that's where the water is going to sit and it's going to leak into the tent. So first you want to, when you're looking at buying tents, definitely look at how it's constructed. Make sure that there's not any extremely bad saggy spots that cannot get rid of. The next thing is how when you set up your tent, you want to make sure that you are actually making it nice and taut. It's very important, otherwise even the best tent will have saggy spots. But the most important thing that you want to look for when you're buying a tent is a full rain fly. That's the most important thing that is going to keep you dry when it rains. Because when it rains, you do not want to get wet. And so there are a lot of tents out there that have quarter rain flies at the top. There's ones that have rain flies maybe all the way down to the bottom on the sides, but not on the doors. And there's a lot of different varieties of tents, but they don't have a rain fly that goes all the way around the tent, all the way to the bottom. That's the most important thing. The other thing is when you buy a tent like that, you know you're buying a high quality tent because that is how they're designed. They're designed to just be designed better. So if you're wanting to buy a really cheap tent and you want to get wet, then go ahead, by all means, go down to your local Walmart store and pick yourself up a nice cheap tent. But I guarantee you, if it rains, you will get wet. So that's why I'm here today, to explain and to help you to get the right kind of tent. Of all the tents that I've bought in my life for car camping and for backpacking, I have never gotten wet. And that's because I followed these simple rules. And the other rule I wanted to talk to you about was when you're setting up a tent and it's raining really hard, what you need to do is make sure to have a trench around your tent. That way the water will get underneath your tent. Because no matter what kind of tent you have, it'll seep into your tent if it gets underneath your tent. So that's one of the most important things as well to do, is make sure that you have a trench so the water goes away from your tent and not underneath your tent. And then also when you're setting up your tent, you also need to make sure that when you stake down your tent, you start at one end, stake that in, and then when you're staking your tent down, you make sure to pull and tighten each corner down all the way around, so everything is very good and tight. Don't just set them, set one in and then set the other one in and don't tighten it down, because you're going to end up getting a very floppy tent, and that's not very good when it's rainy or windy. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is just how you stake a tent down. You always want to make sure when you stake a tent, first make sure everything is very tight, and then when you put in your stakes, nail them toward the tent, going down toward the tent. If you do it the opposite way, for when it's windy and rainy, they'll pop right out. So if you stake them in toward the tent, that will have a much better chance of them staying, and they won't come out during a really bad wind, rainstorm kind of thing. While I'm drying off, I wanted to show you a few of the tents that you should not buy.
If you want to buy a good quality tent that will keep you dry, here are some high quality tent manufacturers I would recommend you look at. So remember, as long as you follow the rules I mentioned earlier when buying a tent, you won't have to worry about the next rainstorm when you go camping. Marmot, Big Angus, The North Face, Kelty, Sierra Designs, and Mountain Hardwear, and Black Diamond.
So, that's about it for now, and we'll see you next time.